Hi, my name is Gerard Daché. I'm the Executive Director of the Government Blockchain Association, and today we're going to be talking about blockchain and land titling and title transfer. Before we get started, and we always do this to kind of give folks an opportunity to join in the call. Let me just tell you about a couple things that are coming up at GBA. So for those of you who don't know, GBA is a 501c6 industry association, and we help the public and private sector connect around blockchain solutions. So using blockchain solutions for public sector problems. We have about 120 chapters around the world. Um, John Carpenter, who is one of our panelists today, is the leader of our Denver chapter and takes care of leadership throughout the Wyoming central part of the state. We have about 50 working groups. John Dean Markunis, who's also one of our speakers today, he's the leader of the land titling working group. But our working groups cover pretty much every aspect that you could think blockchain could be involved in, everything from artificial intelligence to space and voting. And so if you're interested in what happens with the working groups is public sector folks join GBA for free. They bring their problems and inquiries to the working groups, and the private sector folks in the working groups come up with solutions that can be delivered to government. Also, working groups create content and provide speakers for events like this. We do have an event coming up called Government Blockchain Week. It is going to be in September. It's going to be an in-person event. Don Tapscott wrote the first book on enterprise blockchain. He's very well respected in the space. Scott Sternetta, he and his research partner actually invented blockchain in 1991. In fact, if you look at the Satoshi white paper, 3 of the 8 references belong to Scott. And then we'll have leaders from around all around the world, from city, state, local, national, the European Commission, IMF, World Bank, Government of India. We got folks coming from Colorado, from literally the UK Department for International Trade, United Nations, all sorts of US and local agencies. So if you're interested in that event, that'll be in September. Part of that event is we'll be all through the Washington area, including we'll be finalizing or wrapping up at the US Capitol in the Congressional Auditorium, which is where the president addresses both houses of Congress. We'll have incredible receptions. One of the receptions will be on the rooftop of the International Spy Museum. It's just a gorgeous event. And we have awards. We'll have an art show and awards. And one of our award winners from last year is on the call. So I'm going to let Bobby tell her perspective on that. But we give out 4 annual awards for leadership, innovation, social impact, and courage. And if you know anybody that you think deserves an award in blockchain, then by all means, please submit them. So it's still open. But Bobby, you want to share a little bit about your experience with the awards and the event, and are you coming this year?
Yes, I'm coming this year. I am working with, I'm Bobby Mascara, and I work with Hyperledger in their learning materials working group. And through my association with Hyperledger, we did a project last year called the Giving Chain, which tried to transfer donations in a transparent way on the blockchain to local charities in need. It was a proof of concept. It was took off with great publicity from an event in New York that made us aware of the competition. I call it a competition for the achievement awards. So we put the project up and we won, which was, thank you, GBA. And it got great exposure that it's now going to be a mentored project this summer with Hyperledger. So the exposure from the awards definitely had a lot to do with that. So I encourage anybody working on a project to put it up for an award. And Robert Levin, I'm not sure if he's on the call, but he is running that, and he will vet the projects, and it should be a great event, and it's a wonderful experience. So I encourage everyone to get involved.
And Bobby, you were on the stage at the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. I'm sure that was a great moment for you.
It was the highlight of my career, to be perfectly honest. So what an opportunity. Thank you.
I thought meeting me was, but okay, we'll never.
Oh yeah, that too. Of course, that was first.
All right. We also have events that we do all the time. So this is the event that we're doing right now. But by all means, please feel free to check out our calendar. We've got just great stuff. And then when we do these events, we then post the events right afterwards. We do have a big event coming up. We do post this on our YouTube channel. So the last, let's see, we had next generation blockchain platforms, blockchain and voting, and then we also take snippets out. So if you're interested in learning any of these aspects around blockchain, whether it's identity, supply chain, anything like that, this is a great resource. And then we also do member showcases. So if you're a GBA member and you'd like to promote your company, by all means, let's get you on the video. We'll do a member showcase, and then we promote it to our network of thousands of people around the world. We also have a training and certification program in place. So this is under gbaglobal.org/certification, which our certification program includes the blockchain foundations plus technical specialists, healthcare, legal, and financial specialists. In addition to this, we've got a whole bunch of other training that's provided by our training partners, and this is just an example of some of the training that's available through the GBA network. And just to let you know, in terms of who we're involved with from a government standpoint, GBA has we have members in about 500 different governments around the world. Local, state, national, international. This just kind of gives you an idea of who's involved with the GBA. GBA is free for, I should tell you about membership. GBA is free for civil servants, and then for private sector folks, it's a small nominal price if you want to join. I would encourage you to join and be part of this incredible network. That I really think that this organization has really changed the world. And we just don't have time to get into that. We need to get into the subject, but these are basically the different levels of membership for individuals, and we've got some organizations down here. So if you're interested in, I'll cover a little bit about GBA again at the very end, but with that out of the way, and I think that we've given enough time for most people to log in. I'd like to just briefly introduce our panelists. Right, we have John Carpenter, John Markunis, and Wes Williams. I'm going to let them explain what their credentials are, but I do want to share that I know most of these guys for quite a while and have the utmost respect for them. And I'm going to pretty much let them lead the show from this point forward. So, John, why don't you introduce yourself? I'm sorry, John Carpenter, why don't you introduce yourself, followed by John Markunis, and then Wes, and then I'll circle back around and you guys can make some opening statements.
Okay, great. Thanks, Gerard. I appreciate it. I'm John Carpenter, and I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer of Pinnacle Cart, which is a leading e-commerce platform. And we also have our PruPay platform as well for payments. But I'm also a licensed attorney. I've been practicing law in real estate prior to getting into the e-commerce world. And during that time, there was a need for the title insurance companies in Colorado to transition away from another vendor. And so I was tasked with setting up a new title plant system for all the title insurance companies to tie into in Colorado for retrieving these recorded documents. And so I have a lot of background in working with county clerk and recorders in Colorado and understanding the needs of their recording from a titling standpoint. And so I'm really looking forward to this discussion with John and the team here around how we can leverage blockchain to really make that a better system. So John, over to you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John Carpenter. My name is John Markunis. I'm the leader of the GBA's Land Titling Working Group, and I'm very proud of some of the work we've been doing. And I have a little company called Power of Chain Consultancy, LLC, domiciled in Wyoming. And we provide advisory services to startups and business development services to startups as well as mid-sized enterprises with a focus on land registries, global land registries, that is. I have a 35-year background in commercial real estate, mainly commercial. I've worked in 3 different countries, the United States, Mexico, and Brazil. I've been a real estate broker in all 3 countries. And also as a certified appraiser in Brazil while I was there. I worked for 7 years, almost 8, in the title insurance industry in the United States, obviously. The first company I worked for was Land America, the now defunct Land America, which was based out of Virginia. And for the last 4 years of my work, I worked with First American Title as VP of International Operations, where I was primarily involved with business development for Latin America. And I was also hired to open up the country of Brazil to sell or to introduce title insurance and escrow services, which of course did not exist or do not exist really much outside the US. This is going to be a terrific conversation, I think, about blockchain for title insurance, land registry. And so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. West, take over, please.
Thank you, John and John. My name is Wes Williams. I'm a California licensed attorney. I've been in the title insurance industry for a little over 28 years. I got interested in blockchain, really interested in blockchain in 2017, although I was introduced to it by a colleague of mine who was also an attorney working as claims counsel for a large national underwriter, title insurance underwriter. So it was interesting. He was working at the time with a gentleman who Ragnar. My friend sent me some, helped me download my first wallet on Coinbase, sent me some Bitcoin, a few Satoshis, and then I really didn't think much of it in 2014. And then in 2017, got extremely interested in it when I saw the price go up, and went down the rabbit hole of learning as much as I could about Bitcoin, read the Satoshi white paper, and then learned about Ethereum. I didn't read that white paper, but in any event, I learned enough about it to get me interested in smart contracts. And then when I learned about smart contracts, I saw the parallels with our existing, how escrows performed today. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to transform everything. Then I also went down the rabbit hole looking at how this could impact land registry systems as well, and even potentially the title insurance industry as a whole. And then I went on trying to wake up my industry saying, hey, this technology is fairly disruptive. You may want to take a look at it. And here we are today. It's still disrupting everything. And we'll see how it's going to play out in the title insurance industry, at least here in the United States.
Thanks, Wes. I really appreciate that. Hey, and for those of you who know me, I tend to throw people under the bus and make changes on the fly. So you got to kind of stay on your toes when you're engaging with me. And I'm about to do that now. Mark Wasser's on the call with us, and Mark is the GBA CTO. So I just called him a moment ago and asked him if he would also be willing to talk on an aspect of this. So Mark is not a land titling expert, but Mark is a blockchain expert. And one of the things that we're looking to do across our entire footprint is bring these applications onto the government business blockchain platform to make these services available to governments around the world. So Mark, if you could just share briefly a little bit about what the government business blockchain platform is, and what's your thoughts or vision about how you can make land titling blockchain solutions from our members available to governments globally. So introduce yourself, and then when we come back and we'll have people make their opening statements, that's what I want to ask you to talk about. So just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure, absolutely. As Gerard mentioned, I'm Mark Wasser. I'm the Chief Technical Officer for the GBA. Fundamentally, what that means is that I get to play with all sorts of cool projects. This is one of the best jobs in the world, obviously. The government business blockchain platform is fundamentally a blockchain interconnection fabric. What we're attempting to do, and what we have done to some extent, is connect to any blockchain that's willing to connect to us and make it possible to sell services across blockchains. One of the disadvantages of current blockchain technology is that standalone blockchains really need to reinvent the wheel and implement 100% of functionality on their own blockchain, rather than what we would recommend is each blockchain should focus on what they're best at, what they're optimized for, so that they can be best of breed and rely on other blockchains for other operations. Where we're trying to get to with the government business blockchain is to connect as many useful services to us. We also will be able to white box most of these services and provide them to a number of different jurisdictions. One of these obviously is a land titling application. And we expect that once this is piloted by John and John, we'll be able to roll this out to a good number of different locations. Is that about all you want to say, Gerard, or?
No, that's awesome. And as questions come up for the technical side, then I may throw them over to you. I also want to share one other thing. We are a very sort of open group, so a lot of these events they kind of lock things down. So please feel free to put information about yourself and you know what you're interested in, or if you are a consultant or trainer. And you want to sort of promote what you're doing, please feel free to do that in the chat. We have it open so you can chat with everyone or to individuals. And if you have questions, please feel free to throw it in. After they make their opening statements, I'm going to open it up to let people ask their questions so we get more of a conversation going. John, you want to make John Carpenter, you want to make some opening statements before we get in the Q&A?
Oh, yeah. And I think this is also good for just, communicating with the group and then the attendees as well. So, based on my background, I really know how the clerk and recorder's offices work in the United States and also how the title insurance companies work in the United States. So really what I want to look at during this presentation is I truly believe that blockchain is a perfect solution for the clerk and recorders because they have a, statutory fiduciary responsibility to make sure that everything that comes into their office gets recorded in order and it's not tampered with and it's recorded properly. Whereas a title insurance company has a different philosophy, and that is really to facilitate a title transfer between companies or individuals, but ensuring that when the title transfer occurs, there's no liens or bankruptcies or impediments to the title, let's call those clouds on the title, that would impact the transfer and therefore the value that the person's paying for the property. So I think that's another aspect of blockchain where there's a lot of people in blockchain that think, oh yeah, title transfer, let's just go ahead and have somebody who owns a house in Colorado, let's say, they want to transfer it from me to Mark Wasser, and we can just do all that on the blockchain. The challenge there is there's a lot more things to be considered than just strictly a title transfer, because there may be outstanding liens, there may be bankruptcies, there may be easements, there may be unrecorded mechanics liens, there might be a lot of other things that you actually have to insure over that you just can't do a simple blockchain transaction there. And then I think the other thing to look at is also when you're looking at the international space, which I know John is an expert in that. In the United States, I think we have a very good process for the clerk and recorders to record documents, and they're really a good fiduciary for that. But I don't feel like maybe some of these emerging markets, they have as much, control over it, and there may be other issues there where blockchain would really be needed to bring that into something that the whole community can trust. So I think those are kind of the three things that I'd like to focus on. And John and Wes, I welcome you to bring other ones to the table.
Awesome, Mr. JC. And by the way, John's going to be hosting the Global Blockchain Summit here over the next this year. And so, John, by all means, let's get it up on our calendar. And do you have your website up for your event? Is it?
The website is up for the event, Gerard. We're trying to, look at the COVID situation and when people are going to be able to really gather in person without a problem.
Right. But you guys are going to do it virtually until then, right?
Yeah, we're not going to host an in-person event until we get the green light that everyone can gather in large groups together without a problem.
Gotcha. But it's Global Blockchain Summit, right? Is where
correct. GlobalBlockchainSummit.com. I'll post it in the chat so everybody can look at that if they want to check out the prior events.
Yeah. So keep your eyes on that for the rest of the year. John Dean Markunis.
Yes.
World traveler, right?
John Carpenter, thanks for those introductory remarks. Those were encouraging remarks. You came up with, and I appreciate that. Gerard, I want to start off with a little story, okay?
Sure.
It's called The Brief History of Title Insurance. And I think this might help put into perspective this industry, and also possibly sort of put a framework around it that introduces the need for innovation. As I mentioned earlier, title insurance is a uniquely American product. It was invented here in the United States, not discovered, invented a long time ago. But during the first 100 years of US history, the name of the game wasn't title insurance. It was caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. So conveying of real property did not include back then any form of guarantee or assurance or insurance. At that time, transferring title to real property was handled primarily by conveyancers, whom some of them were attorneys. They were responsible for all aspects of a transaction, including title search and discovery of encumbrances, liens, restrictions of use, etc. Some of the things that John mentioned. So based on their search, conveyancers provided what we call signed abstracts or descriptions of title status. However, there were no assurances protecting the buyer from fraudulent conveyances or undisclosed encumbrances, for example, on their property. Unfortunately for the buyer, the abstract, the search, then as well as today, merely reported the recorded history of a property. It did not judge the correctness of any item listed in the abstract. So the need for some sort of assurance arose when the traditional methods of conveyancing failed to provide safety to investors and buyers of properties or homes. So as you can imagine, over the years, back then, up until a certain period of time, many purchasers and lenders lost their investments. They continue to do so today to a certain degree. So, which leads us to the ill-fated Watson and the lucky Muirhead. So what did Watson and Muirhead have to do with it? It wasn't until 1868 that the problem of title, tainting of title drew public attention in the celebrated Pennsylvania Supreme Court case of Watson versus Muirhead. After losing his investment at a sheriff's sale as a result of an outstanding prior lien, Watson, the buyer, sued Muirhead, the conveyancer, who wasn't an attorney. I don't think that would have made a difference. So what happened? The conveyancer had uncovered a lien, the lien on the Watson's property, but represented the title as clear after an attorney advised him that the lien was not valid. The court eventually ruled that conveyancers and attorneys could not be held liable for erroneous opinions based on professional standards of evaluations. Professional standards of evaluations. And when I hear that, I think of something like blockchain to help with standards and evaluations and trust. So, as you may already surmised, Watson lost both the lawsuit and his investment. As you already probably figured this out, we know where this is all headed. If the unfortunate Watson had been able to purchase a title insurance policy, he or she, we don't know if it was a Jimmy Watson or Lori Watson, he or she could have made a claim under the policy seeking indemnification of loss rather than go to court. So a star is born. A huge industry is born. In 1876, a group of surveyors met in a small office in Philadelphia and to incorporate the world's first title insurance company, the Real Estate Title Insurance Company of Philadelphia. We know them still today as Commonwealth Land Title, which was an underwriter for Land America, a company I mentioned I worked for when I started out my career in title insurance in 2006. In that same year, 1876, the industry's very first title insurance policy was issued to a Martha Morris to protect her loan on a residential row home in Philadelphia. Over the next 10 years, after 1876, title insurance companies sprouted up in major cities along the eastern seaboard. After World War II, it became more prominent. And after World War II, with a huge real estate boom, it became the norm. It became standard to have title insurance. Eventually, it was exported abroad in the 90s, and I was a part of that. When I lived in Mexico, 1995-96, Stewart Title became the first American insurer to actually become licensed in a foreign country. So it's been exported abroad. And there are two types of policies, as many of us know, the owner's policy, protecting the owner, and the lender's policy, protecting the bank or institution, financial institution. As mentioned, it's a huge industry. As of 2008 or 2009, there have been four major title insurance companies dominating the landscape: Fidelity National, First American, Old Republic, and Stewart. And back then, they represented or owned 90% market share in the United States. I'll conclude with that because I'm sure we're going to want to get into more discussion, and I'll pass it over to Gerard or Wes.
Wes, it's all you, man. John, thank you. That was awesome.
No, that was awesome. Gosh, I've been in the title insurance industry for over 20 years, and I have heard that the history of title insurance. So I really do appreciate that, John. And John Carpenter, you've asked some good questions as well. Like I mentioned, I've been in this industry for 28 years. I know how the land registry systems here in the land record system here in the U.S. work as comparison to other countries. When I first started looking at the application of blockchain to the land record systems, I thought if we had torrent systems, like most jurisdictions do, blockchain's perfect, right? Because then you have the state actually guaranteeing the title, and then now you have this blockchain. I mean, you could essentially tokenize that torrent certificate, put it on a blockchain, and then you have it there, forever. And then you can build on that. In a deeds-based system, where most jurisdictions are in the United States, the need for title insurance is obvious, right? Because anybody can record any interest in the land record systems. Really, you can cloud title with it. Title companies are in the business of doing this. They've actually migrated away from county land record systems as part of their search process and built their own parallel system, which is what John was working on. And matter of fact, because of how these documents are indexed by grantor grantee, it made it completely complex, particularly if you have a common name like John Smith. You'd have to go through each document, look at the legal description to confirm whether or not you're looking at the chain of title to a specific property, and if that's the one that you're essentially researching. So that made it more complex. Title companies got smart and started posting things through this geographic way, by way of the legal description. So now we have a chain of title that solely posts to the legal description. But one thing we have to understand about blockchain is that theoretically, these are immutable records, right? I'll put on a bunch, except if you're allowed to, you have some control within that blockchain system, and you can roll it back, and then you have consensus to roll back something. I think that's one of the issues that a lot of these county land records are going to have when they get into that. Ultimately, they're going to, it will just, from a land records perspective, I see this as just a way to kind of house their documents to avoid something that happened in Cook County, Illinois, back in its early days when there was this fire. And then they had to change their law and amend their law to allow secondary proof of title through the title companies' parallel plan systems, right? The title company had been creating this parallel plan system, and Cook County, Illinois lost all their records. And so they're like, oh my God, thank goodness for title companies, because they created this parallel system that now we can use as this proof, because they had to amend their laws to allow that proof to become and used as evidence of title. So from a land records perspective, I think it's great, because now, they'll have this, theoretically, this global registry where these documents can be housed. But then it all goes back to garbage in, garbage out. You got to put accurate information on a blockchain, particularly if one that's immutable. And blockchains that aren't controlled by county land record systems, if an individual thinks, and I know there's a lot of people in the blockchain space that they'll say, hey, I'll just record my interest on a blockchain. Well, legally, that doesn't mean anything. The court isn't going to look at that as constructive notice. They're gonna want you to record your interest in the county land records, because that's how the laws are written. We have recording statutes in each state. So I think there are challenges that ultimately can become overcome. And how this looks in the future, I don't know. I mean, people are looking at tokenizing real estate, but they have two ideas. One is tokenizing the deed, and the second is, putting the property in some sort of special purpose vehicle and tokenizing it that way and selling interests, interest shares, which then goes into the whole securities law aspect. So I know there's a lot there. I mean, that's kind of my opening statements, and anybody wants to build or add on that. I know John Carpenter, you have a lot of questions, at least with respect to the work that you're doing with the
Yeah.
what do you the county land records, as well as the title plant in your state.
Oh, hey, hang tight. Before
ahead,
you do,
John.
Mark wanted to say, so he's raised his hand, and then John will go to you.
Great.
Sure. So while it is absolutely necessary to include the necessary authorities, one of the things that's really great about blockchain is that it eases workflows. So, for example, John was mentioning that there were a lot of things other than just recording property transfers that are necessary. So particularly if you involve the county clerks and you involve all the other players in these processes, blockchain can make it very, very easy for this process to happen smoothly. And in this case, you certainly do have the approval of the county clerk's office because they're part of the workflow. And when they approve something, then putting it to the blockchain certainly is all you need to do legally.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's a. Oh, I'm sorry. I
Go ahead,
have a point on that. So this is how I've looked at it. When I first started in my down the rabbit hole into blockchain, I realized that blockchain works best through cooperation and collaboration amongst all these counterparties. I think that's amazing if they all want to work together. We've got a lot of zero-sum game mentality in the world today that doesn't want to collaborate. They want to take everything and source it. I think it would be amazing if we could have everybody be able to collaborate, and then we could all benefit from the transparency and the security that the blockchain provides. But I don't know how we're going to get there other than when you get cooperation amongst everybody.
John Carpenter, and then John Markunis, if you have any comments.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of weigh in on some of Wes's comments here about the parallel system. He talked about Cook County, and Colorado has the same type of a deal, parallel system, and Colorado's a deed state. But one of the things I just want to talk about with respect to the challenges of anything that's outside of what's in the clerk and recorder's office is, let's talk about bankruptcy. And so I've worked in the U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Trustee's Office for bankruptcy as well. And one of the things is when someone files for bankruptcy, you have an automatic stay under the bankruptcy code. And so the title plant, which is this parallel system that Wes was referring to, always wants to keep track of people's personal bankruptcy as well, because if there is a bankruptcy, and let's say that I'm going to sell my property to Wes, but the day before I filed for personal bankruptcy under the bankruptcy code, then all of a sudden, that title transfer is not valid without seeking relief from the automatic stay. And therefore, even though the records look perfect, there's no liens or encumbrances, there's no weird easements, then that property transaction is still invalid. And in fact, one of the other things that I'm working on is called the Accord Project, and that's dealing with natural language smart contracts, and it's taken off of Hyperledger. But that's really one of the keys that I always try to focus on with that group is just because the smart contract can execute doesn't mean that it's legal for that smart contract to execute according to laws of the jurisdiction. So that's kind of a point I want to bring forward.
John Markunis, I see you shaking your head vigorously, so you got some thoughts and comments that are rolling around.
It's shaking left and right, shaking up and down, and shaking all around. Wes mentioned something in the beginning that blockchain is disrupting everything. In terms of real estate, here in the United States, land registry, title insurance, it's not disrupting anything. Nothing. Case in point, there are almost 3,400 county recorder's offices in the United States. I think, John, in Colorado, what did you say the other day? You have about 56,
63 counties.
63. Texas has the most. They're at 250. Delaware has the least, just a handful. Out of the 3,400 counties in the 50 states, only 2 have implemented blockchain.
Mhm.
In the state of Wyoming, Carbon County and Teton County.
Yep.
Okay. So nothing's being disrupted with land registries yet. Title insurance. I've been digging real deep the last year or so with some webinars I've been on and some webinars I've organized, and I've had some people on who are deep in the title insurance space, people from Old Republic, for example. I've spoken with people at the American Land Title Association, ALTA, which I was a board member of many years ago on their international committee. There's not a lot going on in the title insurance industry. And Wes and John, if you could lead me to the water or the Kool-Aid, I'll drink it. But right now, as far as I can tell, there has been just a little bit of stealth research, I think, by some of the companies. I know First American has been looking at it, but I don't see a lot happening. There's not a lot of disruption right now. And I think we should kind of get to some of those reasons. And I think that one is, well, there's several reasons, I think, especially for both industries, which are tied hand in hand, land registry and title insurance. But a case in point, in Texas, I won't name any names or counties, but there's an individual or group that's been proposing blockchain legislation across the board. And I was talking to him a few days ago to get a feel for what they've been trying to do with county recorders offices in Texas. And they've had a couple meetings with title insurance people and county people together. And the title insurance industry, like I said, is very powerful. And in those two instances, the title insurance company sort of put a cloud over the blockchain in terms of possibly its value and possibly what it can, its efficiencies and so forth. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I think Wes and John have done a great job already of describing the value proposition of blockchain. But we as an industry really need to articulate the use of blockchain a lot better than it has been done in the last 3 or 4 years.
Hey, John, Ritesh has got his hand up, so he wants to ask a question or make a comment. And again, if anybody would like to join the conversation, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll recognize you as soon as I can. Ritesh, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Just a fast background. So I had a company called Appraisal.ai where we built the first machine learning driven valuation models, AVM models. So I got to work a lot with the appraisal folks on that. And, as the technologist of 20 years from the financial industry, the blockchain application is very fascinating. So I wrote a small white paper as to why blockchain is not the solution in the United States, more from my education. And what I found was using, Charlie Munger's inversion rule, why is title insurance not used in Europe? And my takeaway was the reason it's not used in Europe is there is a legal requirement to report any activity on the deed, a loan, for example, within a time period. And like in the UK, it is the job of the lawyer and they can get sanctioned if they don't report a new lien. When we were doing our data analysis, so I had the whole title plan, the title records from First American, 250 million records for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. There could be as long as a year lag in reporting a new lien, even by the banks. So there is no obligation for them to report a new mortgage. And so when a property is changing hands, you don't know what's out there. There's no way that blockchain fixes this unless the law is changed, not at the federal level, not at the state level, at the 3,140 counties individually to force reporting of new liens within a set time period. Blockchain does not fix anything. And if you look at the NIST, do you need blockchain flowchart which is one representation of where blockchain helps, there is not a single problem that blockchain solves that exists in the title record system in the United States, right? So there is not a problem of the recorder's office fraudulently recording or except the Cook County case, losing title records. There are not multiple people who are changing the record system. So anyway, this is a fantastic discussion because if you have folks here who are really, really knowledgeable about the title system, I've learned a lot already, but I would love a discussion on what problem that exists in the title recording system today that blockchain will solve in the United States, right?
So Mark's got his hand raised. So Mark, why don't you get
I'm going to stop now.
Yeah. Mark, why don't you respond, and then we'll let any of the other panelists respond.
So the immediate process that the county clerks have really wouldn't change much when you put it on blockchain. On the other hand, what it enables them to do is to, again, have this workflow. And it's quick and easy in some cases, for example, at a national level, to change what is required in terms of reporting requirements. Normally, the fastest way to get change to happen in a beneficial direction is to change how fast something has to be reported. And blockchain could actually help push this type of legislation. A number of other working groups with the GBA, most notably the charitable gaming, or the gaming work group, is already well into the process of trying to get gaming laws changed, or at least the gaming law regulation changed, so that reporting actually becomes so fast and so accurate that you probably can't do it without blockchain. And this is where life becomes much, much better with blockchain. It actually makes it possible to do this faster reporting. And once people are forced to do this faster reporting, you won't have these problems where you buy a property and you don't know about liens on it until a year later.
I have a former employer. We were dealing with a really tough situation. We are trying to get a large organization to change their processes. And I'll never forget a quote that I heard him say this, and I remember this the rest of my life. He said, make following the process the path of least resistance, right? Instead of like coming in there with a strong arm and trying to force people to change, just make it easy for them to want to do it this way. And to the degree that we can come up with solutions that can hit some of those nails, that would be great. But I'd love to hear from any of the panelists on Richard's. Yeah, Wes, go ahead.
Yeah, just to touch on what people were saying and what John Markunis was saying, he's absolutely right. Title companies don't really care about blockchain because they don't see it as a disruption. They don't see it as a disruption to their current process or what they do. To the other individual who was on speaking about, our county recorder offices work fine. Our system works fine. I don't necessarily know how blockchain is going to, change anything with respect to that, and how title and whether or not title insurance is going to go away because of blockchain. I don't think that it is, because at the end of the day, if people are going to sue other people, and title companies serve that role of indemnifying them, either paying their loss or curing the defect or defending their title. So that's what title companies serve that role and purpose for. I think what's fascinating and interesting are the tokenization aspects. And I was curious as to whether people, and NFTs are getting are hot right now. I'm curious about what people's thoughts are on the use of NFTs in this space, in the title and space, and the land record space.
John and/or John? No?
Well, I'll just weigh in on that a little bit, Wes. So I think, being able to fractionalize any asset and have, non-fungible tokens that represent that division, I think is a great use of blockchain. And so let's just say, for example, you had an office building and you had, let's say an LLC or a C Corp of the owners of that particular building, okay? And it may look like a REIT on a small scale. And then being able to say, okay, well, each individual owner in this C Corp or LLC, here is your non-fungible token for your interest in this piece of real estate. And then, when it comes to finally sell the commercial real estate to another party, all these non-fungible tokens would need to come together and say, okay, now we're going to, sell the whole lot. Or alternatively, a person could be like myself. I'm going to sell it to John Marcunas, just my interest in this office building, just like he's buying a piece of this REIT. So I see non-fungible tokens as being a useful utility for transferring portions of title when you want to make it easy to transfer them back and forth, but more from a corporate standpoint than anything else.
Well, John, I don't think you're really transferring title. You're transferring equity. Right?
Equity in the venture, yeah, more like a REIT. Yep.
If you're transferring title, then that would certainly disrupt county recorders. How are we going to start recording?
Correct. That would be off chain. Yeah, would not be acceptable for somebody searching for title on that property. Yeah, they would be owned by the corporation, and then that would be your interest in that corporation. Yeah, that LLC or C corporation.
Yeah. Hey, Gerard, I'd like to get back to real quick your comment about processes and leading to a solution. I think that was absolutely right on what you said. And I'll give you a quick story. When I went,
John.
Yes.
The part about it being absolutely right on, would you do me a favor? Would it be okay if I recorded that portion and sent that over to my wife and family?
It's being recorded.
Okay.
Introducing title insurance in a foreign country, such as Brazil, which I was tasked to do, I had to spend months down there. I interviewed the 7 major banks, and I also spent time in Brasilia, the capital, with the officials there, insurance officials, in fact, insurance across the board. And one of the things that we did, or I did, in trying to understand how title insurance could disrupt or help the property system in Brazil, I had to sit down and analyze, and this is where the interviewing the banks came in. I had to sit down and analyze each and every single document, shred of document that was involved in the process to understand the process itself and what they had to go through. And then once you do that and you understand what documents are needed and what timelines are involved and what processes are involved with all of that, leading to issuing a loan, for example, then you can take it apart and see where title insurance can help. And in fact, what we came up with was that the banks were requiring, I think, 2 or 3 documents that we said to them, these aren't needed. You no longer need to collect these from the buyer. We'll insure those documents. That sped the process up for them. I deeply believe that we need to do that. And John Carpenter, I really deeply believe we need to sit down and analyze every shred of a process that a county recorder goes through and understand really what the process is and where blockchain can impact it. That's needed for sure.
Yeah, and I think that kind of plays into Ritesh's comment about why is blockchain needed in the title business or title world. And I really think Ritesh is, in the United States, I think we have a very high degree of comfort with the clerk and recorder and making sure that the documents are done, statutorily correct. But I think that having blockchain as an additional layer provides transparency and immutability that enhances the public's confidence in the clerk and recorder's office. Because they say, look, there's been no hacker that got into the database and changed any records, and now they have to go back and find an old backup for their documents because now everything is digital, whereas it used to be they would do microfilm or microfiche for the recorded documents. So I think that, immutability and transparency for a public office makes it a perfect solution for that public office. And I'm sure that the clerk and recorders want that backup because they want to always make sure everything that they're doing is, perfect, above board and transparent.
Uh,
Yep.
I
Yeah.
agree. No, I agree with everything you're saying. I just wanted to comment on one thing though. I think um, I think there can be a disruption in title to the extent that the data becomes more available to the general public. I mean, it is to some extent through the county recorder offices. You can go there and look, but the county recorder offices, a lot of these governmental agencies don't have the budget to kind of streamline their records to update them to blockchain, or even actually take other integrate maybe the land records with the taxing records and all those things. So you as an individual would have to go to these different divisions to gather all that information. In other words, the land records, the tax records, and then the general index search, like you mentioned, bankruptcies and federal tax liens, things of that nature. So so the idea of creating maybe something akin to a token. So when I was at when I'm at Ubiquity, and I had this idea that maybe in the future at some point, you could tokenize all the attributes of your title to the property, the tax records, and then you feed in data sources into that token that would be a continuously updating token that then the property owner can control. They would be able to control their data and lend it to whomever they want to see that records. Essentially removing that repository, the secondary repository that title companies kind of have a hold on right now. I mean, you have the two largest title plant systems. Well, it's actually there's Title Point that's owned by one large underwriter, and there's Data Trace that's owned by another large underwriter. These underwriters source all that data, and they basically sell it back to their agents. We have this data. So you don't have to maintain your own title plant. We'll sell it back to you. So that's another overhead cost that title agencies have to contend with. But what if they didn't have to have that, or what if they didn't have to have searcher examiners anymore? Because when you guys, you and I both know that research is being done today with artificial intelligence, because when you include artificial intelligence, machine learning into this, you'll have basically a better system that can view a document, extrapolate like conditioning language, reservation language, easement language, covenant language, and then you don't have to rely on that individual person, the human being, which we're prone to error and mistakes. You'll have that as a kind of like as a backup, hopefully, to make the search process a lot easier. So I think the disruption could be in the title insurance industry, removing that part of it and having it be more open. And title companies would basically just essentially insure, because they can see essentially a running chain of title to this, an updated chain of title to the property. So removing the research of the records aspect, and then essentially ensuring any off-record matters, basically.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. But that's future shock. That's not for a while. We need to start with some basics. So
yeah, the one point, and I really enjoying and learning a lot from all the comments you guys are making. I think the title insurance problem fundamentally in the United States is a political economy problem. Just like, we have voting rights are actually set by the county, and 15 or 20 states have voting in state level voting commissioner, and the rest don't. So it falls to each county in those states to set the voting standards, right? And same thing for education. Now let's imagine if you were to go in and say we're going to impose a national education standard or a national voting standard. I mean, people would be out on the streets with pitchforks and whatever else they have, right? With the back of their trucks and gun racks and everything else. Now imagine saying that for land records. I mean, that is probably the most, charged third rail, right? But
I don't know if I agree with you on that, Ritesh.
yeah.
I guess I've dealt with plenty of clerk and recorder's offices and dealt with their records, and they have a uniform process for how the documents get recorded. And to me, they're just,
I'm not saying they're not uniform. I'm saying is
custodial person for, what is the accurate linear progression of every document that gets recorded? Was it scanned correctly? When we scanned it, was there a missing page and we got to go back and rescan it? And to me, I've seen that they're more about making sure that whatever comes into their office is done in that exact timeline order, and it's all there whenever you go back to look at it, 10
John,
years.
but it doesn't take into consideration the fraud aspect. So anybody can go ahead and record a fraudulent deed, which creates a wild
That's
deed.
correct.
So that's, if you put it on a blockchain, that's bad title on a blockchain. You're still going to need title insurance companies to come and research that and go, we see this, therefore,
Correct.
we're going to have to cure that defect.
Yeah, and there's laws on the books that deal with that too, Wes.
I
If you put
agree. I agree.
fraudulent document of record with the clerk and recorder,
Right.
there are statutory and case law penalties to anybody who engages in that. And Wes, you and I have seen where the clerk and recorder gets all manner of documents that come in. I've seen where, there's a letter that somebody wrote about something and they say, well, I'm going to go take it down to the clerk and recorder and put it of public record.
Mm-hmm.
They can do
Ritesh,
that.
Ritesh, does that address your comment?
Yeah, so it does, but I think the point still stands. I'm not impugning the efficacy or the standards of the roughly 3,000 recorders offices. I'm saying is there are 3,000 offices, and there's no time, at least I think in my lifetime, there will be a national level standard. But I think what is truly fascinating is the real estate market in the United States as a valuation person is about $60 trillion. And roughly 70% of that is residential. And almost none of that, except a very small fraction, is investable, right? You have CMBSs and you have some REITs, but it's a very small fraction of that. What is truly interesting is how can blockchain help tokenize that? And I think that is really where the opportunity lies, and not trying to disrupt title insurance.
Well, then look no further than here's what I'm thinking too. Ultimately, somebody's going to figure out a way to tie real the real world into metaverses, and there are companies that are doing this, and they're building grid overlays of the world, and then they sell these plots of virtual land as NFTs. People are going to come up with a concept of actually tying real world asset like real estate to this virtual world, and in the virtual world it's very difficult to regulate. I mean, and if you include DeFi into that, you can take these virtual assets, you can drop them into a smart contract that it will issue a fungible cryptocurrency. I mean, you can do this. I mean, it's not but people will, because people are going to be valuing these virtual assets a lot more now. They're going to spend a lot of time in virtual worlds trading these assets and leveraging these assets. And that's my opinion. That's
John
future.
Marcunas, does that sound familiar with the space conversation we were having?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We've been having a conversation about doing the exact same thing on the moon. So that's part of our space working group. Hey, let me just take a quick little commercial timeout. John, do you want to talk a little bit about the land titling working group and make a pitch for people to join it?
Absolutely. The Land Titling Working Group within GBA is a group that is dedicated to education. Education. It's an outreach group. We're trying to create an awareness of blockchain and then educate land registry officials around the world on what it is, how it works, and how it could be implemented. And we've been, as mentioned earlier, one of the projects we're getting off the ground with the help of John Carpenter and Mark Wasser is possibly, I shouldn't say possibly, I should be a little more emphatic about it, but bringing the GBA GBBP platform, the blockchain platform, to county officials to make the case for blockchain, just articulate the value proposition, and do a pilot program and show how it works and show how the efficiencies can be, inefficiencies can be decreased, if you will, at least.
I love watching your faces as we're doing this, and when you started mentioning that, Mark started to smile, had a big time smile. And Ritesh, when you said that there was a comment about blockchains not being able to solve the problems, you should have seen the look of consternation on Mark's face.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention was in relation to the problems or, pain points in real estate across the board. And here's a few that I've come up with. There's government bureaucracy. And certainly, but government bureaucracy, I think, is, I call it political, lack of political will for new technologies, including blockchain. There's non-interoperable and there's proprietary software. John, none of all the counties operate independently, really,
Yep.
within a state, right?
Right. And they may have, some may have the same software, some may have entirely different software. There's no, gold standard. This is what you use.
Yep. There's another thing called the oops factor, which was already mentioned. That's the human error. It's going to happen, right? And as Wes correctly said, I don't call it garbage in, garbage out. I call it garbage in, garbage stays, because you can't take it out, you can't delete it. So you have to amend it after the mistake is recognized. The fourth one I wanted to mention is bad data, incomplete and insecure property data. And I was reading a few days ago, I came across an article from the Harvard Business Review. They were talking about bad data. And it was unbelievable. They said it was the amount of money. I don't even want to say the amount of money that is lost through bad data, but it was this Harvard Business Review cited something in the billions across the board with bad data. Another pain point is unnecessary third parties, and this is where I think some of the people who work in county recorders' offices or maybe in the title insurance industry get a little nervous if they know what blockchain is. It could reduce their workload maybe with blockchain, or could reduce their tasks or their job maybe. Another one is expensive due diligence and high transaction costs. Another one is just processing inefficiencies. I think most government offices have processes I think are just inefficient. And the last one, which I think, getting back to Ratish's comment about what blockchain can do, this one is the biggest one of all, and it's fraud and collusion. Granted, the United States and the advanced countries like the ones in Scandinavian countries and so on, the more developed ones don't have this big of a problem of fraud and collusion. Let's say collusion between landowners and a land registry office. But it exists here in the United States as well. And I think blockchain can help out a lot with that. A year or so ago, I was doing a GBA presentation in our San Juan, Puerto Rican chapter. And just before I went down, I came across an interesting statistic. And that statistic is, let me ask you all, do you know what the #1 white collar crime is in the United States?
Wire fraud?
Wire fraud for real estate transactions, ID.
Mortgage fraud. That's according to the FBI, and billions of dollars are lost through mortgage fraud. That's the #1 white collar crime in the US. Can blockchain help eliminate, decrease that? I think so.
Yeah, you have MISMO groups like MISMO working on blockchain standards as well. So you've got a lot of organizations within the real estate sector on the mortgage side, real estate side, looking at obviously blockchain applications, and still thinking about these thoughts like we are. How can we implement it? What's the best use case for this? And I still think collaboration is best.
Well, that's interesting. That's another a non-disruptive market right now, the mortgage industry. There's not a lot being done there either in terms of blockchain. The Mortgage Banking Association hasn't really taken a serious look at it, I don't think, from what I understand. And you're right. I think there needs to be outreach, education, collaboration across the board for I think, a blockchain technology to be reckoned with, if you will.
Hey, John, do you think your working group would be willing to put together some training or standards for a certification course? Actually, let me back up one. I'm going to share my screen for a second if I can figure out how to get there. Well,
Let
maybe
me,
not.
let me jump, while you do that, let me just mention another initiative we have is to create or develop a manual and John Carpenter, this is something I'd like your feedback on. We want to create a manual or a guidebook for land registry or land registry officials as sort of it's not a policy manual, it's a manual or guidebook or a toolkit maybe that could help, that we could standardize and send out actually to every county recorder's office in the United States.
John, I'm in the process of putting together a blockchain for government course, right? And I think we're segmenting it by local, local, state, national, and international. But I'd love to work with your working group to. I might have already sent some initial text out to you guys, but this course that we're putting together, we're doing in cooperation with a major publisher, and that content is going to go out to create an online course that will be distributed to every almost every university in the country that uses this primarily educational publisher, which is most of them. And I'm trying to use this education material to promote GBA members in the various working groups. So it would be a great opportunity for us to review that text, get that in the education system, and then also develop our own course that we could put out. But John, I jumped in ahead of you. Did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think for certification, you're talking about certification course for county officials?
Yeah.
In county recorder's offices. I think that's a terrific idea. I think a manual could be, or guidebook could be a part of that as well. I think the certification has to be, and John Carpenter, I'll ask you, in your opinion, I think any certification from GBA would have to be sort of have some status to it, right? In terms of
Absolutely, yeah. Certification without something to really back it up is, not going to be a good certification. And, I know Bobby's on the call, which is wonderful. She really understands from the Hyperledger perspective, how people can take the training and get the certification. And, I think the same thing would apply to the GBA.
Yeah. Well, let's John, let John and John, let's look at that as sort of a long-term goal. I know that we're doing a lot of stuff with voting and election standards. And by the way, on April 8th, we're doing an event on voting and elections. So a lot of county recorders are also elections officials.
yeah, it's true.
But if you have not had a chance to see, we do have one of our videos here, which is the blockchain voting in the digital ballot debate. This was a fantastic event that we did where we brought people who were very opposed to blockchain, people who are very opposed to anything but paper ballots, very, very strong paper ballot advocates who traveled all around the country and testified for Congresses and state legislatures on why we should only do paper ballots. And then some real rock stars in the digital voting space. And we brought them in a panel together. And I have to admit it, sometimes it was a little fiery, but they have decided to come together and work on publishing a consensus document on the security of remote voting. So just some of the things that are going on in other work groups. Mark, you got a comment? Mark Wasser?
Yeah, one thing which I think is worth clarifying is that there are actually two very different uses of blockchain in real estate. One is, of course, tokenizing real estate. And most of the motive behind that is profit. People see the opportunity to make a lot of money very quickly. And this is actually going to lead to a lot more volume in terms of the types of things that county clerks are going to have to handle. The second part, obviously, is the governmental and regulation part. And fundamentally, this is just infrastructure. This is not likely to be something where people are going to make money quickly. And indeed, there's going to be a lot of pushback. A lot of people who don't want this happening because, as you say, there are jobs involved. People don't like change for the sake of change. The fact that it will save tremendous amounts of money really doesn't have that much impact on individual people, because this money isn't going to the people. It's just money that the governments don't spend. This is also a lot of the reason why I don't see necessarily a lot of companies getting involved in the second portion. This is really why you need the GBA or someone like that who's actually willing to push something that will save money, but not dump a ton of money into the GBA's pocket.
Got it. Hey, Mike Washington wants to know how do you join a GBA working group? So let me just respond to that. So the first thing you have to do, these are the different working groups. So the first thing you have to do is actually join the GBA. So at the top of the page, there's a membership page. So you would become a member. Civil servants are free. Individuals are $2.99. And students, I think, are $49. And then there's organization. And then once you're a member, and it takes a little bit of time for your membership to be validated, then you would just come down to the land titling working group right here. You would click view group, and then you'd have an opportunity to join. If you just wanted to talk to a working group leader, you can just click on their name and you get to their profile, which has got their contact information. GBA is also, it's a great networking group. So the members that have opted into our directory are listed here in this directory. You can search for members by different domains, use cases, cryptocurrency. A lot of event planners use our site to find speakers. And then just to show you how it works, if you search for somebody in the directory, either again by skill, location, whatever, you get to the results page. There's a activity wall, so it's really sort of an interconnective tissue. And we're going to be in Pakistan. That's interesting. Interconnective tissue. Again, there's a profile, so you can find out about people, contact them, and then everybody's in a bunch of different groups. And what the groups allow us to do is to move information through the organization in a very decentralized fashion. So, for example, if I'm in a Washington, D.C. chapter meeting, and I hear somebody say, oh, my boss is looking for a real estate solution, I can say, oh, well, we're also in the land working group. Here's somebody you can talk to. Here's their contact information, right? So this is how individuals kind of network together. Under association, if you come down to members, organizations, then we also have an environment here where you can search for organizations that are in the blockchain space. So it's just part of our tool set to try to help individuals and companies and the public sector connect, communicate, and collaborate around blockchain technology. So, Mike, hopefully that helps. So, listen, I've got a bunch of questions that I've written down. You've answered some of them. So the first question I wrote down, I think you pretty much covered. But if there's anything left on the table, if blockchaining this is such a good idea, what's the problem? I think we've addressed that. If you have any other thoughts on that, I'd love to hear it. And then the next question I have after that is, are there any success stories, right? So we heard about sort of two places in the U.S., but and John Markunis, I'm kind of looking at you because you've been all over the world. Can you tell us about any success stories where there's some real problems that have been solved by this, or is it still too early?
Well, to your first question, I'll just say two things in terms of roadblocks to this. There needs to be two things. There needs to be a political will and a social will. We're lacking on both. And you have organizations like GBA, you have organizations like the Texas Blockchain Council and others, I think, and that are trying to push that envelope on the political side, pass legislation and so forth. And on the social side, the social will, I don't think there's the demand yet from consumers. John Carpenter, I mean, it's hard to imagine a consumer in Colorado who's just bought a house and who's buying a house and calls up the land registry office and says, "Look, do you use blockchain? I'm not going to use you if you don't have blockchain." So I think there needs to be the social.
No. Yeah, there's none of that. And I agree with you on the social side, but just to kind of echo what you're talking about, Teton County and Carbon County in Wyoming, I think that you've got the legislative body that's directing that the state needs to cut over to blockchain, and they own their internal recording system in Teton and Carbon County. So, that's a great success story and a great proof of concept.
Yeah.
And even though there's not the general public on the street saying, I'm not going to buy this property unless it's on the blockchain, I think that the legislation and the leaders there understand that that's a great system. And once we get these states getting behind it and doing these proof of concepts that work, I think then it can spread, at these conferences, because we all know the clerk and recorders will have their own conferences and talk about technology. And, as states like Wyoming get further along, Colorado, I shared with you and Mark that document about saying, Colorado's looking at potentially requiring government agencies to accept digital documents. And I think maybe that can also strike up some of that conversation with the general public and the legislature to say, is there a better way to make this immutable and transparent?
Gerard, back to your second question on success stories. I can't address success stories in the title insurance industry because I don't think there are any. But on the land registry side, there's more success, I guess, in terms of something to talk about outside the United States. As we all know, there's been several or a few, or a couple maybe, pilot programs done in the United States. One is Cook County in Chicago, the famous one from 2017. I know those people pretty well.
Proppy as well in Vermont.
And I was going to mention that one. And so did Cook County, after this pilot program, implement blockchain? No, and they're not going to. And I have a case study on that. There's a good case study available. Proppy went into Vermont, South Burlington, the city of South Burlington, around the same time, 2017, pilot program. And that also did not really pan out. There was an article I read that from one of the officials that they said, and I don't want to misquote, but it was I'm paraphrasing. It was something like, we didn't see the value in it. So in the United States, we have two success stories, Teton County and Carbon County, as John Carpenter alluded to as well.
Yep.
Outside the United States, there's been a lot of case study or pilot programs done. But for example,
Hey, John, quick question. When you talk about a success story, can you peel the onion back a little bit and tell me, I mean, besides them just doing blockchain, what was the success? What, was there some problem they solved? Were there some efficiencies that they realized? Do you have any information about that? Because people may want to try to make a case for blockchain, but we need to give them some ammo on why they should make that case.
Well, I think in terms of Wyoming, from what I heard and I was speaking with the blockchain tech guy, Medici Land Governance, who did this project, both projects. There was increased efficiencies, and they really liked the idea of immutability with the documents. Granted, these counties have some really very good processes and do well, but they decided that they could increase their efficiencies, and they like the idea of immutability. From any other comments from them, I don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was curious, touching on that. Wyoming's an abstract state, so you have abstractors going in and researching this. I'm curious, because they have abstractors, they have title companies. When I heard Medici was down there doing, working on the land record systems down there, I was curious if the title industry down there had any, input into how any of the blockchain space was going on. And from what I understand, at least from back when a couple of years ago, when I talked to the Wyoming Land Title Association president, she said no. She's like, in fact, the blockchain proponents there, because blockchain is, they have a working group, a Wyoming Blockchain Coalition, and people kind of really spearheading, Caitlin Long spearheading, the legislation there and changing everything. The title industry there felt like they were kind of left on the back burner, and there were proponents of this technology kind of really had a lot of animosity towards the title insurance industry. When I thought, God, I think the title insurance industry would have a lot to say when it comes to, if they understood it, knew this technology, and how it could benefit them in the long run. But I think they're still at odds there, and I don't know if they've actually come together to kind of work together with that. I don't know.
Yeah, that goes back to your concept, great concept of collaboration, and I don't know anything about it either. Well, here's a couple success stories outside the U.S. The Republic of Georgia has adopted blockchain. They have a parallel system set up. I know Marianne Tarashvili, the director of their national association. She's a member of my working group. In fact, they've adopted it. They worked with the Bitfury group. The Bitfury group also, in the beginning, 2016-17, created a blockchain platform for the Ukraine. And let's see. So, geez,
And
more success stories than that.
yeah. Well, that's all right, because I'm going to pivot to the other side of the coin, and it might trigger some other success stories. Are there any horror stories?
Yes.
All right, so let's talk, because I think a lot of times, if we really want to understand an issue, we need to look at it from a variety of perspectives. Hopefully, we can learn a lot. What can we learn? What are some of those horror stories, and what can we learn from them?
Even horror stories where blockchain was looked at and was not adopted or implemented, or
well, I think we could look at both, right? But I'm kind of curious about. And this kind of gets back to the earlier question, if it's such a good idea, what's the problem? If folks are interested in implementing blockchain, what are some of the roadblocks and barriers that they may face? What are some things that we might have seen in the past? So I'm looking for A, why do it? What's the ammunition to go forward? And B, and I'm putting on my old Army days, right? So I used to be in the infantry, right? And we would always talk about the operations and all the stuff about what we're going to do, and then we would talk about the intelligence. Hey, what are the bad guys doing, and what's stopping us? And we need to understand both sides of that in order to move forward. So,
okay, here's one. Horror story. It's not a horror story, but and Mark brought it up already. Companies in the blockchain space looking to convert land registries to blockchain are having a tough time monetizing it. Okay. My understanding is that Medici Land Governance did those two projects gratuitously in Wyoming. Why? Same thing GBA is doing. They want to get traction. I think GBA's platform is going to be a terrific opportunity to do that without needing to monetize immediately the efforts to convert county recorders to blockchain. And I think Mark, since I've been involved with this project, Mark Wasser has been fantastic in supporting this whole thing. And now we have John Carpenter on board. So we're starting to move forward. But again, monetization is an issue. Let's see.
And let me follow up on that a little bit. What do you think the trajectory is, right? So I've been involved in a field where great idea, we just got in too early, and I see the same thing happens in blockchain, and I've heard rumors about IBM where they see this huge potential, they all dive in, but they can't monetize fast enough and run out of gas. And they talk about the Gartner hype cycle and stuff. Where do you think, with regards to land registry, are we just about there? Do you think it's going to take more time for education? What do you think that timeline looks to the point where we can really start seeing some adoption?
Here in the United States, outside the United States, it might be a little bit different. But like I said, there's this political indifference, lack of political will for change, and that's the big hurdle. That's one of the big hurdles, which reverts back to education and articulating the value proposition. How is that going to be done? Well, I think the GBA is doing a very good job of that, especially with this pilot program for county recorders. If one of those can be done with John's help in Colorado, and the county recorder officials are happy with it, that's something to showcase, not only in the United States, but around the world, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's right. We put a couple projects like this together. We do some press releases. We can definitely showcase it through our chapters and working groups globally, and our social media presence. I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, Gerard, I was talking to a colleague down in Colombia, the country of Colombia. They have major issues down there. And I was talking to him about this potential pilot program. He says, well, hey, can you bring it down here?
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, you got to get time.
Mark Foster, how's your Spanish?
One point, if I can just jump in. the I've seen implementations of blockchain in third world countries. The problem they were solving there, without naming the country, was that the county recorder's office was actually stealing land titles. I mean, some individual there,
Yep.
because they had access to the database and they could just make a change.
Hey,
And make it,
I got to interrupt you for a second. I've written down about 10 questions, right? I was about to ask my first question when you asked it before I did. I was then about to ask my second question when you asked it before I did. So, you and I must be thinking along the exact same lines, because the very next question I wrote down was, I've heard about about title theft. How is it? How can blockchain impact?
So and maybe I just speak much faster, so I'll just jump in before you. The issue is, in the United States, and again, I'm not a title historian. I have never heard of a situation where somebody at the county recorder's office has stolen a title. It might have happened sometime, but I'm not aware in the last 50 years. So the value, the fundamental value that the blockchain brings about being an immutable record, immutable store of record as a database technology, is kind of made moot, right? And as also the startup entrepreneur who has failed at some ventures, the saying we have in the startup world: you're always better off selling painkillers than selling vitamins. And right now, blockchain for titles in the United States is kind of in the realm of a vitamin. Take it, you're going to feel really good. You might feel really good. We have some studies, but they kind of. In other domains, other jurisdictions where they actually have problems recording clean titles, there's corruption, so on and so forth, there is an actual pain point that can be solved. However, the realm of making real estate investable via tokens, with tokenizing through either a SPV or an LP structure, or directly tokenizing titles, I think that is fascinating, and that's where the opportunity lies in all developed markets. Because anything that is part of the the G7, G20, let's call it, there is almost no application of blockchain to titles because there is no pain point. That's my view.
Hey, Harold, you had made a comment earlier about a success story. I don't know if you were talking about a property or something else. Is there anything you wanted to share?
So one of the successes we've been able to find and that we're planning to have deployed here in the state of Texas is a simple component of tax certification feeding into the title plan. In addition to that, we have found a way to monetize and create a gravitational pool of the users and consumers of real property, whether it's commercial or residential. And we have found an approach that allows individuals to generate revenue from their real estate asset, of which we're working on that deployment part as part of our product offering. And very exciting, we're also a member of the Texas Blockchain Council. So that's what I wanted to add. And there's tons of horror stories out there, because I find that a lot of people are trying to approach this with the same processes that's got us into the same problems we're in today. However, what we're finding is we take a fresh look and really leverage the tools that are afforded to us in this technology and others. And we're hopeful that we'll be one of the first blockchains out there also with quantum encryption. We're working with the Quantum Economic Development Consortium as well, and have written some algorithms in that such. But that's kind of a post when quantum becomes a little bit more effective. So we're very excited about it. There's lots of horror stories, and we cannot continue to repeat the same processes that's got the real estate industry in the situation it's in today. We've got to think larger and more abstract and out of the box. And legislation is not a problem if you're engaged, but we got to be careful not to get into analysis paralysis and deployment of solutions.
Yeah, Harold, I've been talking to Lee Bratcher, who we've offered him the Texas Blockchain Council is a member of the GBA, and we've even interviewed him on on the podcast. He's just a fantastic guy. I have so much respect for him and the work that they're doing. And we're talking with the Texas Blockchain Council about doing some integration with the government business blockchain platform, and specifically even a Texas version of the blockchain platform. So, but we'd love to work with you guys and all the members of the Texas Blockchain Council, because if we can harness the synergy that you guys have there in Texas with some of the work that we're doing globally to connect folks together, I think that would just be fantastic.
I couldn't agree more. We look forward to, my company, as we're a member of the Texas Blockchain Council, I'll probably look to see how I can leverage the GBA because the platform we're building is truly a global platform. And I don't know anyone on this call that wouldn't like to have a way to generate revenue from the house that they live in every day.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Harold,
One of the things that Lee and I have talked about is some kind of a passport membership, where if and I've talked to a couple other associations. So you tag him. I'll try to tag him too, to see if we can kind of bring us all together. And there's just a lot of opportunity. Yeah, John Marcus.
Harold, do you have a good relationship or any relationship with the county officials, county record officials that where you live in Texas?
I'm actually working with the large county CADs and clerks. And I've actually, our company's taken the time to sit with the CADs and the counties to identify their processes and create an opportunity. And we're hoping to provide those counties those platforms free of cost with their 100% ownership, but 100% participation. So we've deflected the cost of the onboarding in the land registry by simply creating that partnership and, quite frankly, free application servers and integrations. And that has proven to be very receptive because cost right now in every county, they're trying to cut it. They don't have enough people to do the job, nor do they have the funds to continue to advance. And if you've looked at any of the county information like I have and the organizations that are providing it, it is so archaic. I don't know where to begin.
Hey, Harold, do me a favor. Put your contact information, if you want, in the chat, because I'm sure, and I open this up to everybody. If you guys are doing anything in the blockchain space that you'd like the panelists or anybody else to know about, we love to spend the next couple minutes and just sort of do a show and tell or share. One of the really awesome things about these events that we do is it's just really a great opportunity for people to network and connect. So,
So I'm working on a digital identity problem to make sure that you can share only the information you want. Like if you go to a bar, the bouncer does not need to know where you live, your name, or even your age. All he needs to know if you're over 21 or under 21, as an example. The other example, when you come to a dealership and the dealer really does not need to see your bank account. He just needs to know if you have $50,000 for a car or you don't.
right. So, and identity clearly is an important part of the space. Marina, please feel free to put your contact information in the chat. And also, I would encourage you to touch base with Shiv Agarwal, who leads the GBA Identity Management Working Group, because we're trying to funnel all of the identity management solutions that connect through the government business blockchain platform and our global operations. We're trying to funnel all that through our identity management working group so we can have a coordinated response. There clearly are a lot of identity management solutions, and we believe that the ocean is really big. No one company is essentially going to have it all, but if we work together, we can certainly, we can boil the ocean if we all basically work on it. So, but that's great. But yeah, please share that information.
Just to tell you real quick, the difference between us and everybody else is we're using what's called zero knowledge proofs, which is a mathematical formula instead of humans and so forth. And so since we're using ZK snarks, they're going to be more or less bulletproof for the any kind of hacking.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
I don't have a LinkedIn, so I'm going to put my Telegram and I'm going to put my phone number so you can access me through Signal.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Anybody else want to share any work that they're doing that's related to this space?
Hey, I would like to share. Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here with you all. So we here at Cyclub, it's a smart living marketplace, mainly focused around sustainability and asset management. So some of them including like real estate asset and other digital assets, as well as in terms of the social collaboration in enabling sustainable projects in terms of the economic improvements locally. So this is what we do. I would love to, of course, it was a great hearing today on all the, titling, which does impact some of our business operations. Would love to talk to most of you and, see how we can work together in the space.
Awesome. And then I would also encourage you to come to the working groups. We have a sustainable environmental stewardship group. It's led by Priya. She's out of the UK. But this is a great group. In fact, I know that as of right now, they're working on a very, very large grant by a government entity to get funding for a lot of the projects. And incidentally, and we haven't announced this broadly, but we're in the process of reorganizing our working groups and putting it under the leadership of our innovation lead. And so in the innovation space, we have connectivity to the World Business Angel Investment Forum, WBA Forum. In fact, the GBA hosts the U.S. office, WBAFORUM.org. And so this organization is essentially connected to the G20. It includes ministers and high-end financial investors from around the world. And through our collaboration with the WBAF, that link goes directly to the top of our working group, the person who's going to be leading our working groups. And our goal is to get global funding from G20 investors into our working groups to essentially help take a lot of the ideas from the working groups from concept and idea through an entity that we're calling GBA Labs to get funding for them. So this is all work that we're doing. We're going to make an announcement to our leadership team during our global leadership call the first Saturday in April, and then we'll probably make a final announcement first Saturday in May. But this is going to be a way that we're going to get global funding into our working groups to help promote members and help them to build out solutions. But yeah, sustainability and sustainability is and all of the UN Sustainable Development Goals essentially are a high priority through this. But yeah, that would be a great way to get connected through these working groups.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, thank you, Gerard. Yeah, definitely would love to get involved in that. In fact, we've been involved in another UNDP program for a better tomorrow. So yeah, would love to chat more with you on that.
Super duper. All right. Anybody else want to share anything that they're doing?
Hello.
Hello, Adam.
Hey guys. So we are real estate development advisors and developers. We work primarily in the Caribbean and based here in Miami. And our focus is essentially on trying to develop kind of future communities that have title, blockchain, and some kind of coin elements involved. So we're just at this point in time, we're learning about kind of next steps and excited to collaborate today with you guys.
I'd like to encourage you to reach out to Silvio, right? If you come underneath association, if you come to active chapters and then zoom into Miami, where are you located?
So we're in Miami, but we also do a lot of work I saw in Puerto Rico.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about Puerto Rico in just a minute. So if you click on Silvio's, so go down to that. This takes you to his activity page. Should have linked it to his profile. And here's all of his profile information. So reach out to him because what you're doing is exactly part of similar to an effort that they've been trying to build sustainable communities, closed communities. We have a working group, I think, called Smart Economies, but the whole idea is to create those localized economies. And Silvio and one of his associates, Randall Pirates, is really heavy in that space. So that would be a great connection for you guys to make.
Great.
So you never know what you're going to learn on a GBA call.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to share what they're doing?
I just want to mention something to Adam, and congratulations on your mayor, Mayor Suarez. Right?
Oh yeah, What do you guys want to talk about that? That's really fascinating. And then I want to jump back to Puerto Rico.
Adam, you're following what, are you familiar with the Smart Florida group, which Sylvia is a part of? They used to be called the Florida Blockchain Foundation, now called Smart Florida. Yeah, Smart Florida. And Sylvia was very involved in that. But I guess following Miami, it was just terrific to see Mayor Suarez sort of requesting that they pass some legislation so that people can get paid in crypto, or city employees.
Yeah. And they're also talking about, it's not a slam dunk, but they've been talking about putting 1% of their treasury into crypto. Now there's some significant pushback, but the fact that they're talking about it, I think, is we're doing a report, an event called the Impact of Cryptocurrency Adoption on Government, and this is, well, here I tell you what. Well, this is an incredible report. GBA working groups. It comes out of our tax working group background. So this report's going to be coming out sometime very, very soon. It's with the editors right now. This document here is a report. It's, like I said, it's still in draft, but it's about, I don't know, it's about 120, 130, 140 page report. And it's all data taken from block explorers, all sorts of different objective data sources to talk about what is the speed, trajectory, and velocity of the cryptocurrency ecospace, right? We break it down by country, by region, all sorts of impacts. And we're looking at how is this impacting government's abilities to collect revenue, how is it impacting their abilities to monitor laws, manage debt, manage their economy, monetary policy, and how does that spill over into all of the areas of government, right? From sustainability to everything. So this report, our tax working group has been working on it. It's also going to result in a dashboard. And the dashboard is basically going to collect all this data and make this data available to public policy and fintech leaders. So
Could you post a link to this report, please?
It's not public yet. It will be released to GBA members probably within the next month or so. Like I said, it's going through the final edits. As you can see, there's a lot of data in here. But John said earlier that one of the biggest problems with education, and so our goal is, if you come back to, let me see if I still have it open. Do I have the members? I guess not. Membership, governments. We need to let people in all of these different government entities, we need to let them know what's happening in the blockchain space, both from a technology and from a cryptocurrency perspective, right? Because the bottom line is many of them just don't know. And I really believe that the cryptocurrency and the blockchain technology, right, they're two sides of the same coin, right? Blockchain is really about the trusted movement of value, and transactions and monetary value, they're all hand in hand. So all of our working groups are working together, and what they do is we can integrate, if we can have the cryptocurrency folks talking with the technology folks, and we can link the GBBP with the land titling, and we pull all of this stuff together, and we all have our part, then it all, we become part of a fabric that's so much more powerful than any of us are individually. And the other thing that I believe is important is, while legislators and regulators are in conferences and committees and debating, right, we're working with technology and organizations, and we're literally building out solutions to make following the process a path of least resistance. And when people are following the process, then it's very, very easy to move legislation. And if you think about how Bitcoin essentially is quote unquote regulated, it's not regulated by a government committee, right? It's really regulated by people who've come together and have come to consensus about how things are going to work. And this type of building consensus and building the infrastructure and building the relationships globally, right? We're creating a fabric of technology, and we're creating a fabric of people and organizations that are working together to solve problems. So that's a little bit about that. So I'm sorry, I'm asking you guys to share about what you're doing, and then I'm monopolizing the conversation. I apologize about that. All right, anybody else want to share anything?
There was a question that was brought up. I thought that was very interesting about title and the need, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And that title seems to be working really well everywhere. In Puerto Rico, and you wanted to segue to Puerto Rico, so maybe this will be the good segue for you.
Yeah,
in Puerto Rico, about 35% of all the homes in Puerto Rico aren't even registered in the title. Title can take somewhere between 6 and 8 months. And if you're a developer such as myself, where we would build 150 to 200 homes, often we finish the whole entire community. 4 or 5 years go by and title is still not officially registered. So I think that when you look at markets that maybe not at the same level as the US, there really is a need to kind of scrap the system and go and start anew. So my question to the group is, have you seen opportunities to replace existing structures with some kind of tokenization, some kind of title, blockchain title?
Adam, I'll pitch in with a couple of thoughts there, since I've done some work in developing countries. I think in developing countries, I think they can really get over the hump of this resistance to blockchain, because they need it most, I think. And as long as they get digitized, they can jump from digitization to blockchain pretty fast, I think. And they need it the most because of fraud and corruption and a lot of other things related to the land, property, taxes, and so on. Regarding PR, and I know Gerard was down there, and so was I. I spoke at the San Juan chapter in 2018, I think it was. And they had just finished a 4-year digitization process. I don't know if you knew that, and which is terrific. It took 4 years, and the company that was doing that or did that was also there, Alberto Lugo. And we spoke about, he spoke about the digitization project, and I sort of segued and followed up with blockchain in terms of the next step. Of course, Puerto Rico is not looking at blockchain right now, I don't think, but it was an interesting scenario where they finished digitization and then perhaps wanted to look at blockchain. But in terms of the untitled properties, that's just blows me away that would be the case still down there.
Mark, did you have a comment? Mark Wasser?
You're on mute, Mark.
The most common phrase this year. I was just going to mention that all of the people who shared that they had blockchain applications, we would love to have any of those applications connected to the GBBP. So please contact me, and I'll put my information in the chat.
And it looks like Mark is down there in Miami with Adam, or maybe he's in Puerto Rico.
All right. Well, listen, we got about 10 minutes before we got to wrap up. I'm going to let you guys make any sort of a parting comments that you want to make. John Carpenter, any parting thoughts you'd like to make?
I just will say that I appreciate the time today. I think that we covered a lot of ground. I think we see that there's elements in the clerk and recorder's office where this is super valid to have blockchain enabled. I think there are definitely differences between developed markets like the United States and emerging markets. And I also look at, tokenization of real estate as being something that, as we move forward, I think that that's really going to come into view, and people are going to figure out ways to make that happen. And there will always be some level of insurance that will need to be done when you do property transactions. But how that will look in 10 years may look entirely different from the process that we're currently doing today.
Yeah, awesome. John Martinez?
Yeah, three things just to follow up and summarize. One, this has been a terrific discussion. I appreciate the opportunity to be on the discussion with the discussion group, including everybody who's attending. And it was terrific to hear Wes and John's comments. I always learn something new. The second thing is I do have case studies on a variety of pilot programs that have been done and a couple that have been completed. Certainly, so if anybody wants any case studies, I have a case study which is readily accessible online. Cook County did a great summarizing white paper for their project pilot program on blockchain, Cook County. I have a terrific case study from the country of Honduras, which was done by a company out of actually Austin, Texas. This is the first use case pilot program outside the US in 2014, in fact. Great use case study from Brazil, another use case study for the Ukraine. And so I can dip into my archives and share those. I'd love to share those with anybody who's interested in reading them. And the third thing is, I think, Gerard, you were trying to get to this. I'll rephrase what you were saying. What would be the tipping point for blockchain acceptance or implementation by US counties or the title insurance industry, I suppose? The tipping point, I think, for land registries will come when a group like GBA or another group like GBA can come in and do it, a pilot program successfully without the sort of the idea of having to monetize it right away, because the groups that have been doing land registry in the United States now, the two companies, they've sort of pivoted away from that. They're now doing other things. Medici Land Governance is doing a lot of work in developing countries like Africa, but they're doing mostly digitization work and property boundary mapping, GPS and satellites, which is a prelude, of course, to new technology like blockchain. So I would say that the tipping point here in the United States for land registry adoption of blockchain will occur slowly, but I think steadily as soon as a group can do it without having to worry about making a lot of money.
Well, John, if any group cannot make money, we're certainly one of the best.
And I'm going to help.
All right, listen, I want to let Wes and Mark make their parting remarks, and then I want to open it up to anybody, any of the participants that want to make a parting remark. I know that the Mita does. So, so Wes and Mark, and then Mita, and anybody else who'd like to make a parting remark.
Thank you, Gerard. Yeah, I want to kind of echo what John and John had mentioned. I mean, at least from here, the U.S. perspective, it's going to be a slow and steady process getting blockchain implemented either at the county recorder level or even seeing the value by the title insurance industry. I think if people like us can continue to, move this forward, move blockchain technology forward and educate and have these discussions about how we can implement and change the process to make it more streamlined and more transparent and more efficient for everybody, as well as reducing the cost of the overall, titling process and settlement process. Because title insurance is a hefty expense, and particularly when we don't go back all the way to patent deed when we search these properties. Title industry has been able to, create a system that's more efficient, and they have collaborated to some extent behind the scenes with their starter exchanges and whatnot. But I think with a blockchain based infrastructure globally, I think it will just make things easier to onboard and try new ideas once we've get the plumbing, the blockchain plumbing built out. That's my opinion.
Awesome. Mark?
So as everyone hopefully is now realizing, the GBA is really about all of us playing well together. There's plenty of resistance to implementing blockchain in a variety of places. And we've talked about a number of the concerns during this talk. It would be wonderful if we could all work together instead of working separately and having a tough time doing it, because again, best of breed blockchains, which can attack different pain points and then work together, is how we'll all advance that most quickly. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. And Mark, and actually all you guys, I want to thank you so much for your wisdom, your expertise, your willingness to give to the community. I'm very humbled to be in your association. So let me open up to the panel. Mita, would you like to make any comments? And you're not muted, but I don't hear you. Mita, unfortunately, we can't hear you. Well, Mita, I think that you might have an issue with your microphone or something. If you want to go ahead and put something in the chat. All right, I will leave I'll leave this open for.
I'm so sorry, but can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Perfectly. Good morning, everyone. I'm currently in India, and I will just give a brief about what exactly SmartSense do. So, as everybody has discussed many use cases about blockchain, we have developed one we have developed for our client one of the use case for blockchain that is that helps our client to to check whether the certificates are tempered or not.
Oh, excellent. All right, so listen, Mita, go ahead and put your contact information in the chat. We have a badging and a credentialing working group that's actually doing a lot of work in that space right now, and it would be great to if you go to the GBA site underneath, I think it's badging and certification, Mark. I think that's it. But we'd love for you to engage with them, because we're looking at actually incorporating that capability into our entire ecosystem. And then I think we also have a records management working group. So that would be another thing. In fact, Mark, we need to talk to those, because I think records management ought to really tie into what you guys are doing with land titling as well. Michael, I can't remember his last name. I think it starts with an H. Leads up that group. So, all right.
Okay, sure. I'll share my details in the chat. And can I get your email as well?
Sure.
Gerard?
Be happy to put it in there.
Okay,
Everyone, I want to say thank you. I've got to jump off here. I've got a call I got to be on here in 1 minute. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who's contributed. You guys are all brilliant, and I look forward to speaking with you again on this topic.
Wes, listen, don't worry about it. We're gonna kidnap you and put you to work in a big way. So you're not done with us yet.
Sounds great. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
All right, guys, I'm going to officially end this. I'm going to leave it open for a little while, just in case anybody wants to grab. Oh, that's interesting. I thought that I put it in case anybody wants to grab anything out of the chat. And again, this will be on the GBA YouTube channel within the next couple of days, so you can view the whole recording. All right, thanks everybody. You have a great day.